welcome to today's deep dive. I want you to picture a scenario for a moment. Have you ever found yourself completely trapped in just a chaotic, never-ending spreadsheet?
Oh, I think we all have.
Right. You know the exact one I'm talking about. You're frantically clicking through like 50 different tabs. You're trying to track down old email threads, begging your coworkers for updates on Slack.
And taking countless screenshots.
Yes, this screenshots, all just to prove to someone else that a project is secure or, on track. If you have ever felt that very specific, soul-crushing administrative dread, you are in exactly the right place today.
Absolutely.
We're digging into a highly detailed premium article that was actually published just today, Tuesday, March 3, 2026. It's titled, Stop Running GRC on Spreadsheets, Build Always-On Evidence in 2026.
Very bold title.
It is. And our mission for this deep dive is to really figure out how organizations can finally transition from what this research brilliantly calls point-in-time compliance theater.
Such a great phrase.
It really is. Transitioning from that theater into a state of continuous, undeniable readiness.
And before we get too far into the weeds here, we should probably define the core acronym right up front so we don't lose anyone.
Good call.
GRC stands for Governance, Risk, and Compliance. It is essentially the rule book, right? The framework an organization uses to make sure it's hitting its goals, managing its risks, and, well, actually following the law.
Which sounds incredibly corporate.
It does sound incredibly corporate, I know. But if you look past that label, this deep dive is actually a masterclass in systems thinking. It's really about operational efficiency.
Which is something I think we can all use a little more of.
Exactly. Even if you don't work anywhere near IT security, what we are really talking about today is learning how to stop wasting highly skilled, expensive human talent on manual clerical coordination.
Yeah, paying engineers to copy-paste.
Right. And that's a lesson applicable to anyone trying to optimize their own workflows, or honestly, anyone who just wants to understand how modern businesses manage to protect our personal data without burning out their entire staff in the process.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I want to start with the core diagnosis here. Why is the traditional way of doing this so profoundly broken?
Well, there is a striking quote right near the top of our source material today that gets right to the heart of it.
Yeah, the one about the operating system.
That's the one. It argues that manual GRC work doesn't break because a team lacks skill or effort. It breaks because the operating system itself is wrong.
Meaning the whole approach is flawed.
Entirely.
Yeah.
They point out that asking highly paid security engineers to spend weeks copying screenshots and, reconciling folders on a shared drive that isn't rigor, it is literally just clerical coordination disguised as governance.
It's just moving paper around, digital paper.
Exactly. It's a fundamental misallocation of resources. And that flawed operating system leads directly to what the industry heavily refers to as the seasonal crisis.
Which is just a polite way of saying audit season, right?
Right. Audit season. In the traditional spreadsheet model, getting ready for an audit becomes this agonizing, frantic scramble.
To just drop everything else.
You have brilliant, highly paid professionals essentially acting as administrative assistants. They are chasing down colleagues for fresh evidence. They're desperately trying to figure out which version of a document is the most recent.
Final v.pdf.
Yes. Exactly that. And they're building these massive slide decks just to update the executive. It's a high-effort, low-trust model. Because by the time you've gathered all those screenshots...
The system has probably already changed.
It's outdated the second you paste it into the deck. What the text argues is that leadership needs to embrace a massive shift toward industrializing assurance.
Industrializing assurance. That sounds intense. What does that actually look like in practice?
Think about it like the finance sector. Years ago, closing the financial books took an army of accountants doing manual math for weeks. Then, they industrialized their close controls with software.
Oh, right, like ERP systems.
Exactly. The goal here is similar. Move away from a one-time manual snapshot of your security, and instead start identifying trends over time using actual system telemetry.
Now, telemetry meaning just the automatic data the systems are spitting out anyway.
Precisely. You pull continuous signals directly from your identity providers, your cloud configurations, your CI/CD pipelines.
Let's pause on CI/CD pipelines for a second, just
Yeah.
to make sure we don't leave anyone behind. That's developer jargon, right?
Yeah, my apologies. CI/CD basically stands for continuous integration and continuous deployment.
Okay.
In plain English, it's the automated assembly line where software developers build, test, and release their code.
So tapping into that telemetry.
Means you don't need to ask a developer if they tested their code. You don't need to email them. The assembly line itself tells you it was tested.
That makes total sense.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, automation in this space isn't just about making the auditors happy so they go away.
Though that is a nice perk.
Definitely a nice perk, but it is fundamentally about buying back time. You are reducing friction, so you can reinvest those expensive expert hours into high-leverage strategy.
Right.
We're talking about having real, meaningful conversations about a company's risk appetite or aligning engineering with revenue goals rather than constantly reacting to the latest seasonal crisis.
So how do companies actually build this? Because it sounds great, but the source lays out this fascinating three-layer architecture for modern GRC, and I really want to walk through it.
It is radically different from the spreadsheet life.
It really is. Let's start with layer A. The material talks about creating control objects to stop paying what they call the framework tax. What exactly is a framework tax?
To understand the tax, you kind of have to understand the rule books. In the corporate world, you have different standards you have to prove you meet.
Like the acronym alphabet soup.
Exactly. There's SOC2, which is heavily used by tech companies to prove they protect customer data. There's ISO, which is an international standard. There's NIST, which is often used for government contracts.
So it's a bunch of different rule books essentially asking variations of the exact same questions.
Yes. And in the old spreadsheet days, if you had a basic security rule, let's say, requiring everyone to use multi-factor authentication or MFA to log in.
Sure, pretty standard.
You would write down how you do it once for your SOC2 audit. Then a month later, you'd write it out slightly differently for your ISO audit. Then again for NIST.
Just writing the same essay 3 different times.
That repetitive busy work is the framework tax.
Sounds exhausting. So how does layer A actually fix that?
By creating a single canonical internal control object. You stop writing to the external frameworks. Instead, you create an internal rule. Let's call it ACO1, Workforce MFA Enforcement.
Okay, so naming it internally.
Right. That object clearly states what must be true internally, who owns it, and how it is tested. Then you simply map that one internal object outward to all the different external rulebooks.
Oh, I see.
You answer the question once, and the system translates it for the different auditors.
Now, the source mentions using something called OSCAL to do this. And I'm assuming that's not a guy named Oskal sitting in a cubicle doing the mapping.
No. OSCAL stands for the Open Security Controls Assessment Language.
Got it.
It's essentially a practical, machine-readable format for representing these rules. You don't have to implement OSCAL perfectly on day one, but adopting that machine-readable discipline is what prevents your entire program from collapsing back into Word documents.
It forces you to treat your rules like code, not text.
Exactly. It creates a foundation.
Okay, so layer A gives us a single source of truth for our rules. But how do we prove we're actually following them?
Right, which brings us to layer B evidence pipelines.
This is the part that promises to end the screenshot chasing forever. The argument here is that evidence has to become API-driven, time-stamped, and perfectly attributable.
Yes. You build repeatable, automated pathways that pull data directly from your systems of record.
Give me an example of that.
Sure. You pull your MFA policies straight from Okta via their API, or you pull your encryption flags straight from Amazon Web Services. Nobody takes a screenshot.
The system just talks to the system.
Exactly. But there's a huge caveat here. The research is very clear that not just any automated data will do. To be considered audit grade, your automated evidence has to follow 4 strict quality rules.
Okay, let's hear them.
First is freshness. Was this data collected within the required time frame?
Meaning it wasn't pulled 6 months ago.
Right. Second is completeness. Does this data cover 100% of your in-scope systems or users?
I'll come back to that one in a second, but what are the other 2?
Third is integrity. Can this data be traced directly back to a trusted source without any human tampering? And fourth is attribution. Do we know exactly which system or service account generated this data and exactly when?
Okay, so going back to the second rule there, completeness. I have to push back a little on the idea that you need 100% coverage.
It sounds high, I know.
Is that actually realistic for a massive, complex company? Or is that just a pipe dream for tech giants with infinite resources?
It is incredibly difficult, you're right, but it's not a pipe dream. It's an absolute necessity. Think about it this way. If your security tool checks 98% of your servers and says they are fully secure, you might feel great.
98% is an A+ in school.
But hackers don't attack the 98% that are secure. They scan for the 2% that you missed because your inventory wasn't complete. If your evidence isn't 100% complete, your confidence is an illusion.
That makes perfect sense when you put it like that.
Yeah.
And I love the analogy I was thinking of while reading the section.
Oh, yeah.
Using stale or incomplete evidence is basically like checking your bank account balance using a printed ATM receipt from 3 weeks ago.
Yes.
Sure, the receipt is an official document, but it has absolutely no bearing on whether you're about to overdraw your account today.
That is a perfect way to look at it.
Which flows right into Layer C control tests.
Yeah.
Because, as the article points out, raw data from an API isn't an audit. How does the system actually know if that data means we are secure or not?
This is where you turn raw data into actual assurance. Going back to our MFA example. In the past, a team might just look at a spreadsheet and say, well, we believe MFA is enabled for everyone.
Based on someone's word.
Right. But under Layer C, you write an automated test that evaluates the pipeline data against specific logic, and it emits a definitive machine-generated result.
And the text says there are exactly 4 possible outputs for these tests, right?
Yes. Pass, fail, partial, or unknown.
Let's break those down.
A pass means you have 100% coverage and 0 exceptions. You're solid. A fail means a segment of your workforce simply lacks enforcement.
It's just broken.
Right. A partial means you have the enforcement turned on, but your coverage is less than 100% because you have unknown inventory gaps.
That completeness rule again.
Exactly. And finally, unknown means the test itself broke or the data didn't arrive from the API. What this does is take human guesswork entirely out of the equation. It is incredibly black and white.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because right as the source finishes building this beautiful automated utopia, it shifts gears and issues a massive warning.
Yes. The text is adamant about the danger of false confidence. They call it the green dashboard fallacy.
Oh, I've seen those dashboards. Everything is bright green, everyone is high-fiving, but nothing is actually working under the hood.
It's terrifying. Automating the collection of evidence layer B without also automating the validation of that evidence layer C is highly dangerous.
Because you're just hoarding data.
Exactly. Your shiny new compliance dashboard might show a beautiful green checkmark simply because data was successfully pulled via an API. The API works, so the light turns green.
But the data itself might show you're vulnerable.
Precisely. That green light can easily hide massive scope gaps. Or worse, completely stale data. Teams assume the software is doing the actual assurance work, but in reality, no human is owning the outcome.
To help companies avoid falling into that trap, the text walks through a really practical automation maturity ladder. I found this super helpful because it shows you don't have to fix everything overnight.
It's a journey.
Right. You start at level 0, which is the baseline manual screenshots and spreadsheets. Level 1 is just getting centralized storage, putting everything in one system, like a shared drive or a basic GRC tool.
Right, organizing the mess.
Then level 2 is automated collection, pulling that data via APIs, but without real validation yet.
That's where the green dashboard fallacy usually happens.
Yes, so where you actually want to aim for your most critical controls is level 3, which is tested. That's where the evidence is evaluated by logic to produce that pass or fail result.
And if you're really advanced, you hit level 4, which is managed.
What happens at level 4?
At level 4, when a control fails, the system automatically creates a tracking ticket in a system like Jira, assigns it directly to an engineer, and enforces a strict deadline to fix it.
Full accountability. But the source makes a very clear point here. You do not want to aim for level 5.
No, you do not.
Level 5 is continuous, real-time monitoring everywhere. Why is that a bad thing? Wouldn't we want to know instantly if something breaks?
In theory, yes. In reality, it's a trap. Trying to do real-time, continuous monitoring on every single minor control in a company creates an overwhelming amount of noise.
Just constant pinging.
Exactly. Your teams will get alert fatigue. If every minor drift triggers a massive alarm, people stop paying attention to the alarms entirely. You only need continuous monitoring for your absolute most critical, high-risk systems. For the rest, daily or weekly checks are plenty. What's fascinating here is how this entire operating model mirrors SRE, or Site Reliability Engineering.
Break that down for me. What is SRE?
Site reliability engineering is a discipline created by companies like Google to make sure their massive websites never go down. They use software engineering to solve operational problems.
Oh, applying coding to operations.
Exactly. If you look at modern compliance through the lens of SRE, you aren't just generating audit artifacts to put in a dusty binder. You are actively building control reliability. It's about continuous improvement, measuring your service levels, and demanding incredibly clear accountability when things break.
And accountability is exactly what the next section tackles. Operating GRC, like a product. Because you can have the best API integrations in the world, but if your daily routine is wrong, this just becomes an exhausting second job for everyone involved.
Yes, culture eats strategy.
Always. The text relies heavily on a RACI model to explain this. Can you define RCI for the listener?
Sure, RICI is a classic management framework. It stands for responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed. It clarifies exactly who does what.
So how does that apply here?
In this modern GRC model, the control owners, meaning your actual IT or engineering teams, are responsible for keeping the systems secure in reality. The GOC team is responsible for building the automated workflows and doing quality control.
And who takes the fall if it fails?
The CISO, the Chief Information Security Officer, is accountable.
Meaning if the board of directors asks, are we safe? The CISO is the one whose neck is on the line.
Exactly. And that crystal clear ownership becomes especially vital when you deal with exceptions.
Right, the exception life cycle.
Right.
Like when a developer needs a temporary break glass administrator account to fix an outage on a weekend.
Yes. The material introduces a fantastic concept here. It says that exceptions are not just permanent special cases that you sweep under the rug, they are risk IOUs.
I love that framing. A risk IOU.
And like any financial IOU, a risk IOU has to be paid back. Every single exception in a company must have four things.
Which are?
A clear business justification. A specific compensating control, meaning if we lower the shield here, how are we watching it? A designated executive approver. And most importantly, a hard expiry date.
A deadline.
Yes. The author states this beautifully bluntly. Expired exceptions greater than 0 equals a governance failure.
Wow. No gray area there at all.
None. If you have exceptions that have aged past their expiration date and nobody has fixed them or renewed them, your governance process is fundamentally broken. You are flying blind.
So to keep those IOUs from silently piling up, the research outlines a very strict operating cadence. A schedule to keep this system alive without burning out the staff.
It's actually incredibly manageable.
It is. Weekly, the team spends just 30 to 60 minutes on triage. That's for catching things early, reviewing any risk IOUs that are expiring soon, and addressing new control drift.
Just a quick check-in.
Right. Then, monthly, you dedicate 1 to 2 hours for a deep dive. You sample 5 to 10 controls just to manually ensure the automated evidence quality is still audit grade.
Right. Trusting the automation but verifying it?
Exactly. Quarterly, you take a half day for risk register refreshes and what they call control rationalization, which really just means stripping out outdated rules that no longer serve the business.
Cleaning house.
Yep. And annually, you do a full scope reset and align your audit plan for the year.
And driving that entire schedule are the metrics. The text heavily warns against vanity metrics, like just counting how many controls you have to look busy.
Quality over quantity.
Always. It focuses on actionable telemetry instead. 2 specific metrics jump out. First is MTTR, or mean time to remediate.
That's essentially a stopwatch.
Yes. How long does it take from the moment a security control breaks to the moment it is fixed and revalidated by the system? Is it 2 hours or is it 3 weeks?
Yeah, if it's 3 weeks.
If that number is rising, your ownership is broken. Engineering isn't prioritizing the fixes. The second critical metric is your evidence freshness, SLA adherence.
SLA being service level agreement.
Yes, a promise of performance. Are you actually pulling your automated evidence within the required daily or weekly timeframes? Because if your automated pipeline is broken and your evidence isn't fresh, your continuous posture is completely fake.
So what does this all mean? We've talked a lot about systems in architecture, but what does this mean for the listener's own career and skill development as we navigate through 2026?
That's the real question.
Right. The final section of the research is basically a roadmap for practitioners who want to stay relevant. The core argument is that you don't stay ahead by doing massive, exhausting training boot camps once a year. You do it through a compounding learning cadence.
It's very intentional that the learning cadence perfectly mirrors the operational cadence we just discussed.
It really does. The source suggests dedicating just 30 minutes a week to technical reading. But here's the trick. You have to turn that reading into a 5-minute control improvement log.
You document it.
Yes. You find one tangible idea you can add to your backlog. Then, monthly, you take a 2-hour block to actually build and ship one of those tangible improvements.
Putting it into action.
Quarterly, you run a half-day redesign workshop with your team to cut the noise and prioritize new targets for automation.
And then annually, you step outside the building. You attend one major industry event to get a clear signal on where the tooling and the macro strategies are heading.
The text actually name drops a few specific signals of where the industry is heading in 2026.
Oh.
For those listening who want to mark their calendars, they highlight RSAC, which is happening March 23rd through the 26th in San Francisco.
A huge one.
Yeah. There is also the ISACA North America Conference, May 6th through 8th in Las Vegas, and the ISACA and IIA GRC Conference, taking place August 17th through 19th in San Diego.
Attending those events is great, but the material offers some very vital advice on what to do with that knowledge. You have to choose a specialization.
You can't just be a jack of all trades.
Not anymore. The premise here is that generalists are the ones who keep the programs running, but specialists are the ones who actually change the programs.
So what kind of specializations are high leverage right now?
The source highlights 3 major domains for 2026. First is AI governance. That means managing the inventories of AI models a company uses and enforcing strict usage policies.
Huge topic right now.
Absolutely. Second is supply chain risk, dealing with continuous security signals from all the third-party vendors a company relies on. And third is cloud controls monitoring, which focuses heavily on policy as code and detecting when cloud configurations drift away from the baseline.
It's getting super specific.
It is, but if you specialize in just one of these areas, you become the person who can write crisp, testable rules that the engineers actually respect. You become the voice of credibility when talking to the executive board about risk trade-offs.
It really brings us to the core ethos of this entire deep dive. The ultimate goal of shifting away from manual spreadsheets and into always-on evidence isn't just to save a few hours of annoying admin work.
Not at all.
It is to fundamentally transform what human beings are doing with their time. You automate the repeatable, tedious collection of data so that human judgment, your highly trained, incredibly valuable human judgment, can be spent on what only humans should do.
Which is?
Making actual strategic, nuanced risk decisions for the future of the business.
This raises an important question, and it's something I want to challenge you, the listener, to really think about as we wrap up today.
Lay it on us.
We've spent this entire time talking about corporate compliance, API pipelines, and systems of record, but take those exact concepts, specifically the idea of risk IOUs and the completeness and freshness of your data, and apply them to your own life.
Oh, I like where this is going.
Think about your daily routines, your personal finances, or those side projects you're trying to manage. How many temporary exceptions or manual, exhausting workarounds are you currently running in your own life?
Probably more than we'd like to admit.
Right. Have those temporary fixes quietly become permanent. And if you applied a strict control test to your own personal dashboards today, whether that's your budget, your health metrics, or your goals, would you find that you are operating on a false screen based on stale, outdated information?
That is a very real gut check.
It's really something to mull over. Where in your own life do you need to stop acting as the frantic clerical support and start acting as the executive decision maker?
I love that, taking the spreadsheet out of our own lives. That is a perfect thought to end on. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the future of operational readiness. We hope it helps you reclaim your time both in the office and out of it. Catch you next time.